Guardians of the Blade, by Adalene Martis, Chapter 10, B.L.A.D.E. That evening Nyra slept beside Therak for the first time. Throughout the night, she stirred occasionally, waking him with gentle nudges to share moments of intimacy before drifting back to sleep. When morning came, Therak found himself beside her, lying quietly as he watched the soft rise and fall of her breathing. The subtle hum of the facility's systems was only broken by the sound of her breaths. The steady rhythm of her breathing was a welcome change to the sounds he was used to hearing. He marveled at the peaceful expression on her face, her ears twitching slightly as she dreamed. An overwhelming sense of affection washed over him. He laid still, not wishing to disturb her. After a while, a pressing need reminded him that he had been holding off on visiting the bathroom for some time. He held it, refusing to move until she woke on her own. After a while, Nyra's eyelids fluttered open. She caught his gaze, a sleepy smile forming on her lips. "Good morning," she whispered. Caught off guard, Therak glanced away briefly. "Good morning," he replied softly. She reached out to embrace him, sliding her knee between his legs, but he gently pulled back. "I need to go to the bathroom," he explained, a hint of embarrassment in his tone. She huffed playfully. "I just wanted a hug," she teased. "I've been waiting half an hour for you to wake up," he admitted with a chuckle as he stood up. "Give me a moment, and I'll be right back." Nyra watched as he headed toward the small adjoining restroom. Deciding not to be left behind, she slipped out of bed and followed him. As he aimed at the pot, she wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head against his back. Therak tensed slightly. "Nyra, not while he began, his cheeks warming under his fur. She laughed softly. "I've seen everything already. No need to be shy," she said seductively. He couldn't argue with that logic. "I suppose," he conceded, relaxing a bit while he took aim and let go. "So what do you want to do today?" he asked. She considered his question. "I was thinking we should do some general preventative maintenance," she said. He nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good idea. We should find the maintenance manual before we do that, though," he said. She rubbed her face against his back. "If we could find an existing manual, then I wouldn't have to write one myself," she said with approval. He finished up and turned to face her. "There should be a copy of the manual in command or engineering." "Great," she said, stepping back to allow him space. As he washed his hands, she added, "By the way, I think my heat is over." He looked at her and sniffed the air. His lips didn't pull back, and he didn't feel drawn to her sexually. "Seems that way." She nodded. "Do you have something I can write on? I want to track my cycle." Therak thought for a moment, then rummaged through a nearby drawer. He retrieved a data pad and handed it to her. "You can use this. It's mine, but I haven't used it in years." Nyra took the device and swiped her hand over the screen. A biometric prompt flashed, indicating access was denied. She handed it back to him. "Seems it doesn't like me," she said. "Right," he said. He navigated to the settings menu and adjusted the access permissions. "Here, place your hand on the scanner." She did so, and the datapad registered her input, unlocking the main interface. As he handed it back, an old photo appeared on the screen, a formal portrait of Therak in uniform, along with his bio. Her eyes widened slightly. "Captain Therak?" she read aloud, surprise evident in her voice. He nodded modestly. "Yes, I was the captain assigned to this facility," he said. She looked at the photo and said, "I didn't realize you held such a high rank." She looked at him with renewed curiosity. He gestured toward the doorway. "Come on. We should get you registered in the system so you can open all the doors around here," he said. As they walked down the corridor, The metallic floors echoed softly under their footsteps. Nyra glanced at him thoughtfully. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you." He glanced over. "What's that?" She hesitated briefly. "Why do you have a mane when you also have stripes?" "It's a bit unusual," she said. He ran his hand through his hair. "Don't you like it?" he asked. He'd always been proud of his mane. Yes. "It's very handsome," she said, rolling her eyes. "But that's not why I'm asking. I've never seen a Pheran with a white mane, except in pictures, and all those pictures were of Pheran nobility." He smiled slightly. "My mother was mate to the king's cousin. I inherited my stripes from her and the mane from my father." Nyra's expression shifted subtly. "So you're related to the royal family," she said quietly. He nodded. "The king was my second cousin, but it isn't as impressive as it sounds. I only met him once." "Impressive?" Nyra's lip curled up with disgust, as if that was the furthest thought from her mind. "I didn't expect to be with the cousin of that." She trailed off, catching herself. Therak noticed the change in her demeanor. "That what?" She shook her head lightly. "It's nothing. Forget I said anything. Nyra, you're my mate. If you have something to say, then say it," he said gruffly. She sighed softly. "It's just, in school we were taught that the Pheran king was a tyrant." Therak stopped walking, his gaze sharpening. "My king was not a tyrant. He was an honorable Urmah, and a strong leader who brought unity and order. It's a shame outsiders intervened in the war. If we had won, it would have been better for all cats." Nyra met his eyes, defiance flickering in her own. "I see you don't agree," he said. "State your opinion. Let's have a debate." He was eager for the challenge. She looked away. "I don't think we should discuss politics. Let's focus on working together rather than arguing with each other." He resumed walking, a feeling of disappointment settling inside him. "You could at least tell me your opinion." "We're stuck together in the middle of nowhere, Therak," she said. "There's nothing to be gained by arguing about a war that ended before I was even born." Let it go. Stuck with each other. Was that how she felt? An uncomfortable silence settled as they continued down the corridor. Had he intimidated her somehow? Did she not trust him enough to debate with him? Therak's shoulders slumped as they continued down the hall. He wished she felt safe enough to share her thoughts with him. He had already put his life in her jaws. What more did she need to trust him? Therak closed his eyes and sighed. Perhaps she just needed more time. They reached the command center, and the doors slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, the room was filled with consoles, monitors displaying various readouts, and a large central view screen that was currently blank. Nyra looked around appreciatively. "I'm always impressed by this place," she remarked. Therak gestured toward the captain's console. "This is where we'll add your credentials to the system." She approached the console, observing the array of controls. "You'll have to show me how this works." He smiled faintly. "Of course. It's fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it." As he guided her through the registration process, the earlier tension began to dissipate. They focused on the tasks at hand, collaborating smoothly as they added Nyra to the system and set her access permissions. Therak registered Nyra as the facility's chief engineer, but only gave her access to non-restricted areas. "Why can't I access navigation? I can pilot if you give me manual control," she said. "The ship's AI is in control of where we go and when," he explained. Nyra didn't seem pleased by that answer. "However," Therak added, "if there's anything you need that's still locked, let me know and I'll open it for you." "Thank you," she said sincerely. "This will make things much easier." He nodded. "We're in this together, after all." She glanced at him. "I appreciate that." "I'll look for the manual. Give me a moment," said Therak as he dug around inside some compartments. While Therak looked for the manual, Nyra took a seat in the captain's chair and flicked her finger over the commander's console. Physically, she looked too small to fill the seat. However, the way she sat, with her shoulders back and her chin held high, she filled the space with her presence. She noticed him looking at her and turned to face him. "What?" she asked. Therak smiled to himself. "Nothing. I was just thinking that you fill the seat well." She looked down at herself and the giant chair. "You must be joking," she said with chagrin. "No," said Therak as he shook his head. "I'm serious," he said. "I respect you, Nyra. I believe the most capable should lead. If you were a Farron officer with me on this facility, I would have asked if you wanted command and yielded it to you if you said yes." Nyra furrowed her brows, then smiled as if she thought he was making some elaborate joke. Therak continued to stare at her, absolutely serious. The intensity of his gaze seemed to embarrass her. Her eyes stuttered between his and the commander's console before finally settling on the screen. Therak went to another compartment and began searching, leafing through old orders and empty papers. Finding nothing important, he glanced over at Nyra as he shifted to the next compartment. Her response frustrated him. He didn't like seeing such a competent individual looking so timid. "Nyra, are you surprised that I would submit to you? Have you not recognized your own quality?" asked Therak. Nyra's eyes widened at his words. "You're serious?" she asked, her voice tinged with incredulity. Therak nodded firmly. "Completely. I was trained to give way to the individual most suited for a role. When it's obvious you're outclassed, you give way. This is common sense. The mission's success is everyone's pride. Personal pride only gets in the way, so we learn to discard it on Avion." She shook her head slowly, trying to process his statement. "Where I come from, feline aren't allowed to be ship captains," she admitted. "Because we go into heat and can get pregnant. We're viewed as liabilities in leadership positions." Therak continued searching through another compartment, his hands moving items aside as he spoke. "That's unfortunate," he remarked. "When I was younger, feline were prescribed medicine that could completely suppress their heats. Is that not common practice anymore?" Nyra turned away from the console, her full attention now on him. "It's still the same," she replied. "But if you're out traveling and can't fill your prescription, then complications arise." He glanced over at her, pausing his search momentarily. "If the captain goes into heat, the vice-captain can take over while her mate attends to her needs," he said matter-of-factly. She cocked her head to the side, a cheeky grin spreading across her face. "And what happens if the vice-captain is her mate?" she asked. He met her gaze with a subtle smile and gave her a wink. "Then we have fun until you're done," he said. Nyra chuckled softly. "I've never heard a male speak like you before," she said. "Then perhaps you've been spending time with the wrong males," Therak replied. Nyra grew contemplative, going quiet as he resumed his search. His fingers touched a box inside the compartment. Opening it, he found a thick-bound book labeled Top Secret. "We're lucky I found the manual," said Therak. He opened the manual and looked through the table of contents until he found a section labeled Maintenance. He handed the manual to Nyra's waiting hands. "Page 431, he said. "Why is it in a book?" she asked. "So inconvenient." "It's less easy to copy and distribute that way. This is the only copy of the manual. Please be careful with it," said Therak. Nyra scanned the cover, running her fingers over the top secret label. She then flicked to the table of contents and looked it over. Therak tensed as she flipped the manual to the B.L.A.D.E system page. Nyra's eyes widened as she read aloud. "Baryonic Linkage Annihilation Drive Engine. B.L.A.D.E. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the weight of the words hung heavily in the air. Her gaze darted back to the manual, flipping through the pages with increasing urgency. Diagrams of intricate machinery, energy flow charts, and technical specifications blurred before her as she scanned the document. She looked up at Therak, her expression a mix of disbelief and dawning horror. "Therak, is this facility what I think it is?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He met her gaze steadily, a somber nod confirming her suspicions. Her breath caught in her throat for a moment. "This facility is the lost weapon of the Pharan Empire, the blade that annihilated an entire planet," she whispered. Nyra collapsed back in the captain's chair, the manual clutched tightly against her chest. "I've seen images of the destruction in history class, the aftermath. Is this really that facility?" she asked. Therak nodded again, his eyes reflecting a deep-seated weariness. "Now you understand," he said quietly. "Do you see why I reacted the way I did when you first arrived?" he asked. Nyra pressed her hands against her temples, trying to process the revelation. "Do you realize that the Federation has been searching for this place for decades?" she asked. "There's a massive reward for anyone who could find traces and report it," she said. Her eyes lit up. "You realize this is a scavenger's dream?" she asked. Therak's expression hardened. "No one should ever know of this facility," he stated firmly. She looked at him incredulously. "But think of what we could do with this information. We could negotiate, ensure it's dismantled properly. No one has been able to replicate this technology. We could—" He raised a hand to interrupt her. "Nyra, listen to me." His tone was earnest, almost pleading. "Even when I die and you live on past me, promise me that you'll never reveal information of this place. I don't know what you were taught about us in school, but my king was not a tyrant. If he died without using this facility, then that means he decided that the B.L.A.D.E system was too dangerous for anyone to wield." She stared at him, conflict evident in her eyes. Nyra's shoulders slumped as she grappled with the weight of the situation. "So you've been here alone, guarding this monstrous weapon all this time?" "Yes," he admitted. "It was my duty. And now, perhaps, it's ours." She looked down at the manual in her hands, the top-secret label glaring up at her like an accusation. I never wanted this kind of responsibility," she whispered. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. "I know it's a lot to take in, but I respect your competence. That's why I shared this with you." She met his gaze, her eyes searching his. "What if I send a signal to the Federation?" she asked. "What would you do?" "I'd be impressed," said Therak. "All subspace communications are filtered by the computer. You're welcome to try to outsmart it, if you like. I've tried to put out coded messages to command for decades. However, even if you do manage to get a message out and the Federation sends ships, the facility will outrun them. That's how you got stranded here in the first place, remember?" he asked. "What are we supposed to do then?" she asked. "Just stay here indefinitely, guarding a weapon that shouldn't exist?" Her voice was incredulous. "For now, we maintain the facility and the status quo," Therak replied. "We can discuss other solutions later. I may debate the topic with you, but I won't ignore you. If you can convince me of an option I haven't considered, I'll follow your lead. So speak freely." Nyra furrowed her brow as if she still couldn't believe him. Therak reached out and cupped her cheeks with his massive hands, and nuzzled the top of her head with his muzzle, then licked her. "What do I have to do to get you to trust me?" he asked, his voice buzzing with a little purr. Nyra pressed her hand against his chest lightly, and he withdrew, giving her space. "All right," she said slowly. "I'll help you. But I don't intend to stay here forever. I'm going to find a way out of here eventually." Relief flickered across his features. "I understand. Thank you." She glanced around the command center. You know, she began thoughtfully, maybe we can figure out a way to disable the B.L.A.D.E system. Make sure it can never be used again. A hint of a smile touched Therak's lips. I've considered that. But the system defends itself. Any attempt to tamper with navigation or the B.L.A.D.E will cause the system to self-destruct. It's designed to prevent tinkering, and when it goes, it'll take the planet it's on to oblivion as well. There won't be any escaping that. Nyra's face screwed up with frustration. A moment of silence passed between them as Nyra digested what Therak had come to accept long ago. She offered a faint smile. Looks like this isn't going to be as easy as I'd hoped, she said. We've got our work cut out for us, Captain. He returned the smile. Indeed we do, Chief Engineer. She extended her hand. Partners? She asked. He clasped her hand. Partners, he said firmly. After they read the relevant section of the maintenance manual, they spent the next few hours cleaning the nutrient paste lines, working side by side to ensure everything was functioning properly. Nyra's technical expertise proved invaluable, and Therak once again found himself admiring her proficiency. She calmly taught him how to maintain the lines without needing to replace them. It wasn't a permanent solution. Given how entrenched the mold was, the entire system needed to be replaced. They needed to find or recycle raw materials for the engineering lab before they'd be able to fabricate enough replacement parts to get things working like new. However, cleaning the lines was better than nothing. Hours passed in focused effort. Eventually, Therak ran out of things that he could help her with and wandered off to make a late brunch while she finished up. When he came back, he brought a warm rag and bowl to wash up and a plate of meat. Thanks, she said. She rolled her shoulders as she closed a panel. She had been sitting in an awkward position for hours and looked uncomfortable. While she washed up, Therak began massaging her back and shoulders. She tensed slightly at his unexpected touch, but then relaxed as he worked out her kinks with his hands. As Nyra began to eat, Therak continued gently massaging her. The warmth of his palm pads and the methodical pressure eased the knots that had formed from hours of meticulous work. She let out a soft sigh, the tension melting away with each knead. You're quite good at this, she admitted between bites, a hint of appreciation in her tone. He smiled softly. She took another bite, savoring both the meal and the massage. After a moment, a playful glint appeared in her eyes. You know, no amount of massage will get me to go back into heat, she said. Therak chuckled quietly. Nyra, I'm not doing this to get you to mate with me, he said. She raised an eyebrow skeptically, casting a sidelong glance at him. Sure you aren't. If not that, then why? He continued rubbing her shoulders, his voice earnest. Do I need a reason to make you feel good? I want to. That's all. Nyra paused, his sincerity catching her off guard. Well, when you put it that way, I suppose I can just enjoy it, she said softly. He nodded, a gentle expression in his eyes. You do good work. You deserve to be pampered. She relaxed further into his touch, seemingly lost in thought. After a few moments, she looked over at him. You know, we make a pretty good team. He smiled warmly. I was just thinking the same thing.